So I'm sitting right now at an average balance of $70-ish thousand in my main investing portfolio, and I'm 27 years old right now. And being that I closely follow financial news, whenever Jerome Powell speaks, I listen. Warren Buffett is my guiding North Star. I've certainly made mistakes along the way, but I've always assumed that I am above average, or at least further along in my investing journey than the average person. And if you are taking the time to watch this finance video on YouTube, you're probably in a similar situation. But today I wanted to definitively find out if this is true, and if so, how far ahead are we? To make this more interesting, go ahead and leave a comment below letting us know how much you have invested total and what your age is. That way we can achieve a wider consensus of where we as a group lie on this spectrum. Also, at the end of this video, I will be updating you guys on my latest trading activity because almost $20,000 moved around in my portfolio. So I'll be showing you guys what I did later on in this video. But getting into today's topic, this right here is a scale that I kept coming across in my research. And this is trying to establish a framework based off of your income of how much you should have invested at various ages. So at the age of 30, you should have the equivalent of your annual salary saved. So if you make $55,000 per year, that's how much you should have saved / invested. At age 40, this climbs to 3 times your income. Age 50, 6 times. Age 60, 8 times. And the pinnacle here is age 67, which maxes out at 10 times your annual income. So that's great. It makes a lot of sense to me personally, but for the purposes of this video and the exercise we're trying to do, we want to establish hard numbers that we can use to benchmark our progress against specifically. So for that, we need to find out what the average income actually is. This is from Fred, and it's the personal income per capita, which is an average. And right now it's sitting at about, 68,000. And this is the real median personal income in the United States. And this is sitting at about 37,000 per person. So it makes a huge difference. We're going to go with median, and we're going to round up to 40,000 as the overall average median income per person in the United States. And this is very broad. It's across all age groups. It doesn't fluctuate by age. And for simplicity's sake, we're still going to use this, but keep that in the back of your mind. So applying that number to these goals, that means at age 30, you should have $40,000 saved, 40, 120,000, 50, 240, age 60, 320,000, and then 67 is $400,000 saved / invested for retiring. And to achieve this, it is super easy if you begin early. So at age 20, that means we have 40 years to allow this to grow. And in this situation, you only need to begin with a $100 deposit and then contribute $150 per month for the duration of your life, and you get an ending balance of $372,000. Now, I will say that retiring off of $400,000 isn't optimal, but combined with Social Security as well as downsizing your life, limiting living expenses, this is the situation the vast majority of people are in. I did come across this piece of data, which is the retirement savings account balance by age. Again, they do split it up by average and median. And by age 65, or the retirement age, the median here is only $90,000. Even the average isn't that much better at $256,000. Now, this is just retirement savings. We do have to add regular savings into this. Unfortunately, it doesn't get that much better. So here, the average savings by age, even as you approach retirement, it's still only an additional $6,400. So in comparison to reality, it seems like this scale, based off of the kind of recommendations of 3 times your income by age 40, is a good baseline benchmark to aim for. And if you can do better, then that is certainly welcomed. And again, I want you guys to leave a comment below letting us know how much you have invested in your main investment account and your current age. As I showed, I'm sitting at around 70,000 personally, and I am 27 years old. So I can definitively say I'm doing better than most people. Although I do want to stress here that this is a long-term game plan. We tend to think of investing as looking like this over time. It slowly grows. It's a linear progression. But I think in reality, our personal investing goal, our net worth, looks a lot more like this. It's rocky, very volatile, and we have moments that we do lose a lot of money. So even though right now I'm ahead of the pack with $70,000, it's very possible that something could happen in the future, I lose a lot of money, and I go below the average. That is why risk tolerance is so important. You don't want to assume more risk than you can handle, and as you get older, closer to retirement, you can lesser and lesser afford these big drawdowns to happen. And that leads me to the recent trading activity I made within my portfolio. So it's split up into two separate trades. On August 23rd, I finally sold BST, and I transitioned that into a new holding, SCHG, which is a large cap growth ETF. It essentially takes the S&P 500 and filters it by the faster growing companies according to a few very clearly stated metrics like EPS growth, revenue growth, and their dividends. It's simple, it's an index approach, and I'm going to give it a shot in my portfolio. I still like BST. I think it's a very unique growth fund because it offers a high yield with a covered call strategy. But as I'm accumulating a higher net worth, again, $70,000, the volatility is something I'm paying more attention to. And BST, over long periods of time, does have phenomenal growth, and I think that will continue. It's just that to achieve that, you have to put up with a ton of volatility, as we recently saw. Again, I think long term it will have great performance, and you do have that very nice monthly dividend yield to help you get through these low points in the fund. But overall, I think SCHG is a more predictable, slower growing ETF. And then the second trade here was on the 24th, the following day, and this is more of a slight adjustment. So I sold a VGT, which is a Vanguard Information Technology Sector ETF. And this is a great ETF, one of my favorites of all time. And I made a lot of money with this. I bought into it originally in November 2022, and I rode it all the way up until August 24th. And most of the money from the sale went into IXN, which is essentially the same thing. If we take a look at the fund overlap, there is 81% commonality between the two funds. The big difference, however, with IXN is that there's a sprinkle in of global international tech companies as well, not just US exclusive names. And I really like that. I know a lot of people like to have dedicated international ETFs in addition to their US only ETFs, but with the way my portfolio is, I think IXN just fits in and complements it very nicely. So again, coming back to the overlap between VGT and IXN, the major difference here is that IXN has TSMC, ASML, Samsung, SAP, and a few other non-US technology names. But of course, overall, this is still very much so a US-dominated fund, just with a little bit of extra international exposure, and that's what personally I was looking for. So overall, to give you guys a portfolio walkthrough, I have 7 ETFs right now. SHV, which is a short-term treasury fund. I'm just parking money here. It's not a long-term investment of mine. We have my 2 new growth ETFs, SCHG, IXN, DIVO, which of course is a value dividend growth ETF with a covered call strategy, and SCHD, a traditional value dividend fund. I still have the traditional S&P 500 ETF, and I might be selling this because I have both SCHD and SCHG, which essentially is the S&P 500 split into a value and a growth half. And not to mention I have XYLG, which again is the S&P 500, and half of it is allowed to grow and the other half is generating income via covered calls. So as much as it pains me to sell the S&P 500, one of the greatest ETFs of all time, I think it's really not needed here. And I could always buy it again in the future if my strategy changes. So that's the video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one.